Okay. I just
Hear you there, Ned. Intro this.
All right, give me a second. Let me just. Okay. So basically, it's already recorded. I'm just going to say, welcome everybody.
Okay.
Where'd that come from?
Oh, sorry. You know what? Okay, sorry. That was on YouTube. It already started going live, but that's okay because I'm the only one watching. Okay. But yes, okay, really quick. So I'm going to do the intro video, then you're going to come on, and then I'm going to go back on for share screen to do the actual recording.
Okay. And maybe I don't even need to close it out. Maybe I just let it roll and then I'll come for the next session. Okay, sounds good. Let's do it. Welcome everybody to day 2 of LA Games Conference. We have a fantastic program for you today. Our first session, which I'll introduce in just a minute, was pre-recorded, but we still will have the chat open and the Q&A open, and we'll be taking questions and sending them to our speakers. But first, let me invite everybody here to introduce themselves in the chat on the bottom nav. When you do that, please make sure to select everyone from the drop down so that those introductions and comments can be seen by everybody. Like yesterday, we will be having sessions at the top of the hour. Our first session is a keynote conversation, which I'll introduce in just a minute. Our session at 11 a.m. Pacific is on the rise of blockchain games. Then at noon Pacific, we have NFTs in games. And then we'll close out the day today with our 1 p.m. session on the metaverse and challenges and opportunities in the booming market. Okay, without further ado, let me introduce our keynote session. It is a keynote conversation moderated by Mike Vorhaus, CEO of Vorhaus Advisors, with Noni de la Pena, who is founder of Emblematic Games, and Ashley Crowder, co-founder and CEO of VNTANA. So Emma, if you could roll the video.
Thank you very much, Ned. It's great to be here at LA Games Conference. We have 2 amazing panelists with us today. Our keynote conversation with Emblematic Group and VNTANA. And I think you're going to be blown away, even just by the background of these 2 amazing people. And I'd like to ask each of them to introduce themselves first. And then I have to say I was so impressed by their LinkedIn. Thank God, God created LinkedIn, that I may even add in a few. And then we're going to talk about where XR is going, VR, AR, who's winning, who's losing, how does it affect the creator economy? And I want to really dig in and understand your 2 companies also. So Nani, if you don't mind us starting with you, or maybe as I have come to know you in the last time getting ready for this, Dr. Nani. I'm feeling pretty good today, doctor.
Not that kind of doctor.
We'd love to know about you and your company and your PhD.
Sure. So I am proud of that PhD. Boy, did that take some hard work while running a company and raising kids. So that was definitely something which, but relevant, really. I think, and I'll talk to you about my company, but I think what both Ashley and I do is we think a lot about space and place. And when you think about a lot of the, ideas around space and place and what they call phenomenology, which is how you think with your body as much as with your mind, those are really important ideas that I was trying to delve into as deeply as possible in my PhD, and they're very relevant to what we do. So at Emblematic, I've been running a company that has been building virtual and augmented and extended reality experiences. I had the first virtual reality piece at Sundance, at Tribeca, you know, and I've done AR for everybody from, you know, really Google, Wall Street Journal, major companies, Cartier, and then have done a lot of journalism, best known for making very impactful pieces, such as the one that will be premiering this June at Tribeca Film Festival about Lyme disease. And I've also recently taken on another hat, because I guess that's the way I roll, working for Arizona State University. They bought a building in downtown LA, the old Herald Examiner building. And I'm going to be running a new program there, a new center on narrative and emerging media. And we'll have a graduate degree, which will be opening up for applications in June. And a research center, and that, you know, privileges the body over everything. You know, how do we use haptics for experience and narrative, et cetera, and an incredible event space. Look out for our events coming up in the fall. And the reason why I took this job is because, as we were discussing earlier, how much we need to shift the demographics to make it more inclusive in technology endeavors. And Arizona State University got the highest number of first-gen kids, hugely diverse demographics, and they're committed to being inclusive. And so at Emblematic Group, I would take, you know, a couple women interns here, BIPOC there, et cetera, et cetera. But here I can really scale that commitment. So I'm super excited to be now running this new program at Arizona State University as well. And so that's really, really what we're up to. Oh, and one last thing, sorry, which we can talk about later, which is our software that we've been building, a no-code software to make it really easy for anybody to use just buttons to build immersive content.
And that is your reach.love program.
That's correct.
And anybody who's not interested in something with a .love URL should consider empathy and connection training. So exactly as I expected, you failed to mention your Harvard degree. You failed to mention your fellowship at Yale. You failed to mention your involvement with BAFTA. You failed to mention being a speaker at Davos. And you also failed to mention that you were the Wall Street Journal Innovator, Technology Innovator of the Year. So I just want to say, maybe I missed something, but wow.
Thank you.
And your colleague, Ashley, colleague in the sense that I understand from our pre-talk today that you two have gotten to know each other through your two businesses, but not colleague as in you work at the same company, because in fact, Ashley is the co-founder and CEO of VNTANA. And Ashley will also no doubt be humble. So I will be here to broadcast the key points. Ashley, tell us about yourself and tell us about VNTANA, please.
Yeah, it's great to be here. So as you said, I'm the co-founder and CEO of VNTANA. My background's engineering, got my bachelor's and master's in engineering at USC, which has the amazing partnership with the military called ICT, where I first got introduced to 3D AR VR tech and fell in love with it and was like, this is going to change the world. I want to help build it, which is why I ended up, co-founding VNTANA, which is a software platform that automates the management, optimization, and distribution of 3D models at scale. So we work with a lot of fashion clients, including VF Corp, Hugo Boss, Diesel, Deckers, and others, to take their existing manufacturing design files and instantly make them web ready, as well as social media. We just launched an integration with Meta to enable 3D and AR ads at scale, which I'm super excited about. I know people have their own feelings about Facebook. Very excited about what we're helping do to broaden 3D reach. And then the 3D models are also instantly ready for game engines like Unity and Unreal, because obviously I think there's a whole new revenue stream that every brand should be looking at of selling digital assets, whether that's in-game or NFTs.
Excellent. Very, very interesting. And of course, you didn't brag about the fact that your company is in fact a real company. You've been in business 10 years, and I would imagine you've had profitable years. Have you raised venture money, both of you?
Yeah, so when we first started VNTANA 10 years ago, phones couldn't do AR and web didn't support 3D. So we were doing location-based mixed reality experiences for brands like Nike, Adidas, et cetera. So we built a profitable business doing that, but nobody ever had the right 3D models. So we had to write all this software to fix these problems. And so in 2019, we said, you know what, everyone's phone can now do some pretty decent AR. Web can now support 3D. So we raised a round of funding to launch our software as a standalone platform. We've raised about 12.5 million to date. Launched our platform February 2020, which was very good timing with the pandemic. So someone up there was looking out because you can't plan that.
Well, they do say that we all operate in mysterious ways. And Nani, you have also raised venture money?
Yeah, not like Ashley. We've done mostly a lot of friends and family, but also some venture. Built by Girls was one of my funders, which is an amazing portfolio of women founders. So they were early supporters of Emblematic, and as we've gone on to reach to build our own software, we're looking to raise to actually scale that business.
Give me a call later. I will give you some good introductions.
Awesome, Mike. I really appreciate that help.
I'm happy to do that, including I want to refer you to Gangels that has a particular emphasis, not just on LGBTQ founders, but also women and people of color founders. So
awesome.
I will make sure
Thank
that
you.
we do that. So 10 years, that's very impressive, Ashley. I don't think other than Google and Amazon, I know anybody from 10 years. But you blew my mind when I saw that you worked on refining oil. I mean, that is amazing to me. And that you worked on manufacturing military weapons at Northrop Grumman. And as I was reading your LinkedIn, I thought, wow, that's an amazing background. But then I saw you were at my favorite tech company, the Gulfstream company that makes everybody's favorite private jets. But then to throw a curve at me, you spent time at MTV.
Yeah, I was really trying to figure out what I wanted to do in life. So I don't think I think people get panicked, especially college kids these days, to pick, like, I'm going to pick my career. It's like, no, we're going to live to be 100. You're going to have 7 careers. Just start somewhere and try it. So yeah, I was all about experimenting.
So being a student undergraduate at SC in the industrial systems engineering, boy, if there's a group that sounds like a guy's major, that would be it. Were you the only woman in the year?
So when I graduated, it was 18% women. I do, like Nani, a lot of volunteering to help change that number. I do a lot with USC, and I know in 2020, I think the freshman engineering class was 45% women, which is awesome. So we're getting there. It's not a pipeline problem. We got to just, keep providing like networks and opportunities to kind of bring in more diversity, which is exciting.
Caltech's 50% undergraduate now.
Wow, it's wonderful. I mean, I think like Ashley, it's really clear to me that Ashley basically had to invent her field, right? I mean, she kind of knew all these different things, but none of them fit well. And so Ashley took all of those skills and her smarts and had to create the vision of what she wanted to do. I think you see that with a lot of these women founders, is that there's just not really the right space for us. I think when I started Emblematic, I guess really in 2014, I built my first VR piece in 2007, if you can call Second Life VR. It's certainly Metaverse. But it was really clear to me that when I was talking about, I want to use embodied experience for doing nonfiction, journalism practice, I got so much pushback. I'd been a correspondent for Newsweek. I'd made doc films. I understood the language of journalistic narrative, but I wanted to do it in an embodied form. And I had fingers in my face from people saying to me, that'll never work. You can't do that. So I really respect that, Ashley understood that in order to find her true path, she had to kind of build it as she went.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone in the space. I mean, there's, the metaverse is now a buzzword, which is, I think I'm excited about it. I think rising water raises all ships. I know there's a lot of hype, but I think everyone within, the game, even within the games field, games is like, oh, they're just fun and toys. It's like, no, game engines are powering everything now, from every piece of content to shopping, plus games. I mean, it's just incredible. And so I think, everyone probably listening in on this conference too, kind of feels that of forging their own path, and now into this, where we are today, where COVID sped everything up. And, I feel like we're here, it's exciting. And now, this is a clear path that people can take. So.
Well, we're going to talk about Unity and Unreal in just a minute. But before we do that, I want to put everything in context here. It sounds like, Ashley, that you are definitely a tools company.
Yes, we're the 3D plumbing, we like to say.
That's more original than picks and shovels.
Yeah.
And nobody's left from 1849 that I'm aware of. So I think Joe Biden would have said at the Washington White House Correspondents' Dinner the other day that maybe he was alive for the picks and shovel period.
Yeah.
And Nani, it sounds to me like you make tools, but it sounds like you guys also make end content.
Yeah, I think we call it sort of our virtuous cycle, right? We are trying to make something and we find a hole, a problem. And so we engineer our way out of the hole. And often in that engineering, we end up with, stuff that can scale. I don't know if you know that I used to 3D print my own headsets when there were no headsets out of my mom's garage. After, I'd worked with Palmer Luckey. I mean, Palmer was the lab intern at ICT, where also Ashley got some introduction to this stuff at USC.
The founder of Oculus, for those of you that are not familiar with
Oculus Rift. And when I was a research fellow there, and when we got the piece Hunger in Los Angeles into Sundance, my piece was going to premiere there, the head of the lab, Mark Bolus, is like, you're not taking our $50,000 pair of goggles. And there was a big push to get some goggles out there that would be able to be used at Sundance. So Palmer was beavering away and ended up like crashing in my hotel room and driving the truck around Sundance for us. He was the intern. And I think he likes to be called the lab tech now. He doesn't like to be called an intern, but that's okay. So anyway, but then when Palmer, and then 9 months later, he, started Oculus Rift, right? And the history of that is obviously phenomenal. But when he started Oculus Rift, the goggles that they produced initially, for cost, sucked. You couldn't walk around. The lenses were crap. They were crap. And I wasn't going to go around showing myself with crap like that. So we just started building our own goggles. I had to source from a bankruptcy sale these lenses that had been originally, purchased for NASA, and the company went under, and it's only a few pairs of lenses left. So I had to do all these crazy things, and we actually had the first wireless pair of goggles as well. We got some HDMI transmitters, and you could fully walk around. But that's what I mean. I wanted people to really be able to move through space, and so we had to solve the problems. And when my team engineered a live feed of the stock market for an AR app for the Wall Street Journal on a Google Android, when I walked into Google, they gave us a standing ovation because we'd solved some really serious engineering problems. So sometimes people don't see that. They see the content and they cry. Like I'm known for making content that is very, connecting to real world issues. And people feel that, and they just don't recognize sometimes the kind of engineering work that actually has to go in to keep things cutting edge. But, as Ashley and I can talk about, there's nothing I hate more than seeing in Unity a null reference exception, like as a, like it could be the one side, one side in the code has got a capital letter A, and then the Unity side, you actually put a small letter A, and you'll get this null reference exception, your code's not working over something as stupid as that. And that made me, first off, dumb dude for writing the code that way. But secondly, it made me feel like I've got to be able to create some sort of content that, or a tool set that can make it easier for everybody. And, we used our own Reach.love software to create a trailer for one of our pieces that was at Tribeca last year about a kid in the Japanese American concentration camp. And the Guardian did an interview with me about, pandemic and art and what's going on. And I gave them the trailer to embed in their website, and, got 45,000 views in 2 days. So this is a way, like Ashley said, of trying to get this stuff so that it moves forward. And what she's doing with Meta, I think, is really going to benefit all of us.
Okay, so let's stay with you for a moment, Nani. Explain the business model to me. Where's the money inside this bale of hay?
So the content itself is still a little bit of a, tough space. I tend to get, it depends what it is, right? If it's an AR app for the Wall Street Journal, that is a potential, right now, all your stock market apps are flat, right? If you look in your, and the data itself is so much better if you can look at what it's dimension. So there's certainly potential there, but the Reach platform is definitely built on as a SaaS platform. It's a subscription-based model, pretty traditional, based on, a freemium model, which lets you do a number of projects for free. But then, once you get X amount of views, you do have to kick in dough because we can't carry the cost of the AWS storage in a blank check. You want to see something that's sustainable, that can grow for everybody and become better for everybody. So, but the goal of it was to make it so that, you don't have to spend a year learning Unity before you can start making your own kind of content. It doesn't have the physics of the game engines, and I'm aware of what it takes to make a game. I did a board game on, believe it or not, on eugenics that premiered at Games for Chain. I've done mini games. In fact, our Lyme disease piece at Sundance has some very interesting mini games within it to help you really understand the implications of getting Lyme disease and not being able to get medical care. And I'm working on a game right now on great rock and roll hotel room trashings, where we have the likes of music from Slash, licensed, et cetera, and you get to emulate the great trashings. But I know for everyday use, for educational purposes and medical purposes, and even meditation purposes, having a tool set that is much more able to draw the LiDAR scans from your phone and drop yourself in even on a green screen and talk about what you've seen and add some animations, that doesn't require the kind of heavy lifting that a Unity or Unreal does require. I use those tools all day long. I just wanted to offer something as an alternative so that anybody can start understanding how to make spatial content.
Is there a low-end version of that SaaS fee for the prosumer or the average?
Exactly. We have a freemium and then a prosumer, and then we have a business license. Exactly.
Excellent. Ashley, tell us about, to quote Tom Cruise, where's the money?
Yeah. So yeah, we're a pretty typical SaaS platform. It's a software license. We work primarily with businesses, and it's a license that tiers up based on usage. So the more 3D models you have, the higher the tier. And it allows us to work with large enterprises like VF Corp and Hugo Boss, who launch 40,000, 60,000 products a year, who really need automated software to make that work. Like, it doesn't matter how many 3D artists you have, that's just not doable. But also the smaller companies with less. So yeah, it's pretty simple.
Okay, I want to, since we brought up Unity, Unreal, I want to go to NFTs and the metaverse and whatnot for sure. But give me your over under. Give me your handicapping on Unity. Where are we going to see them over the next year or two? What are their challenges? And the same for Epic. Sometimes you feel like Epic's become quite a favored son, but then you look at Unity's massive domination and percent penetration, and certainly they both could be winners, but they both must have strengths and weaknesses, and you two probably know them better than anybody.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're both going to be winners. I mean, I know that's probably not the answer you want, but it's like we have Apple and Microsoft, right? They're going to be around forever. They're very different, and they service different markets. Epic, Fortnite is incredible. my friend's kid just wants all her allowance for Fortnite assets to buy and make her avatar look cool. Like, this is what Gen Z cares about. They're buying digital assets with real money and living in these games. And Epic has, some amazing technology that keeps people playing. And then Unity really dominates the mobile market, which I think a lot of people don't realize. I think 60% of all mobile games are built in Unity, or maybe more. And they have a huge ad network across that all of those games, which is hugely powerful and gonna, also hugely revenue generating. And I think more and more as people blend, what is gaming, whether it's, shoot 'em up game on my phone versus I'm decorating a house and I'm purchasing different 3D models to decorate this house. It's a huge spectrum, and it's becoming more and more popular. And I think Unity has a real leg up on that mobile aspect. So
let's give kudos to Julie Schumacher, who built and ran and operated until her recent promotion at Unity, the entire Unity ad network. It was over $1 billion years ago. So I assume they're probably at 2-3 billion or something in revenue today. So kudos to Julie. Nani.
I think one of the part of that you want to, also highlight, which is, I think it's pretty interesting, is the way that the film industry is now gravitating toward the game engines, right? Who would have thunk that? Now everybody's starting to do virtual production. Disney has a brand new huge stage that they're opening up. And at ASU, at my new building, it's kind of amazing. It's the old Herald Examiner building, and it was designed and built by the first female architect allowed to practice in the United States. And now I'm coming in and showing different kinds of—
Not Julia Morgan.
Yes, built by Julia Morgan.
Oh my gosh.
Dude, well done. So
my mother would be proud of me.
Good for your mom too. I felt like I should have, would love to meet her. We also we have a virtual production stage that we've opened. So that's part of our overall, emerging technology narrative efforts. The fact that you can, Mandalorian, of course, is the thing that everybody holds up to show how the game engines, right now Unreal dominates, but I think Unity is going to have some successful forays into that as well, in showing how, you can build virtual spaces. I did a piece for a fashion brand called GCDS. We did their entire Milan Fashion Week show in using virtual production. Where Ashley is absolutely right, using the digital model from these designs of these clothing, but then we had to animate them along with avatars and use all kinds of camera techniques that used to be used in real world filmmaking, and bring them into the game engine so you can do your zooms and your pans, et cetera, for a 2D output. And people still watch a lot of movies and TV shows, et cetera, et cetera. So that's, to me, another part of why Epic and Unity are still going to be very successful over the next few years.
Okay, we'll consider that a recommendation on the stock. I predicted in my Forbes predictions this year that Epic would sell this year. We'll see if I'm halfway through the year almost. I'm not right yet, so we'll see. So let's stick with this gaming channel in this conversation. I'm told that brands are getting deep into gaming technology. I'd love to understand that better. Maybe you can give me a few good examples of some branded game experiences, and of course, advice on how to help brands in the AR, VR, XR, and gaming spaces.
Sure, I can talk about that from the fashion perspective that we work with. So, you do have companies like Gucci and Nike who, were first movers in the space, creating some, amazing interactive experiences in Roblox and Fortnite, like Balenciaga, where you could buy and sell these digital assets and make it interactive. And I think they're, leaders in that. And there's a huge opportunity. But what a lot of people don't realize is the entire industry was, shut, everyone knows they were shut down with COVID, but they still cannot get samples on time. entire fashion industry is built on getting like, you design, you make a physical sample, you send it, you look at it, you make changes, you send it to Nordstrom's to sell it. They still can't get any samples. So everyone was forced to move from these physical samples to 3D models. And over the past 2 years, pretty much all the major brands have invested heavily in creating these interactive showrooms, whether that's in Unity or Unreal Engine. Several have built custom in-house. Others, there's some great startups out there that we work with, like Beyond XR and Pixel Pool, who kind of built more like plug and play. And the entire industry has changed to now sell with 3D models instead of physical samples, which is amazing because it's a huge reduction in carbon footprint, plus big cost savings and speed to market. And I think that's been able to be the playing ground for some more conservative brands who are, now that they've kind of set that up, they've seen the success, are now ready to do more consumer facing interactive 3D games. Yeah.
Don't I need to feel it?
They feel it. So just for example, one of our clients, an average cost to create a sample is $100. They launch 1,000 SKUs a season. 3D digital gets rid of that. So you're saving 100 grand. It used to be a 6-month sales process down to 3 weeks. So it's huge revenue to the bottom line. No one's moving back. They were forced to try it with COVID. And now they're like, oh, well, now we have these 3D models. Can we also use them with consumers and engage them? I just got off a call. Can we, get that same 3D model on the e-commerce site before we even manufacture, so we can change how much inventory we make? And then on top of that, 3D is proven to increase conversion rate and increase average cart size, because it gives consumers such a better understanding of the product. So there's tons of money at every aspect of the retail value chain, from like that B2B internal use case all the way to the consumer use case.
Quickly, Ashley, what are 3 or 4 other industries in addition to fashion where you think this is going to be important?
Yeah, I mean, furniture is huge. It's kind of all the same benefits that fashion has, but probably even larger, because how do you ship a couch somewhere? The cost of that. And I think everything, Decentraland's doing, it's clear there is value to these virtual spaces and building them. I keep hearing more and more architects turn to, well, I'm mainly building for the metaverse now. It's more of these futuristic, virtual only spaces I'm designing as a way more than physical spaces, which I think is really, really interesting.
Well, we're going to come to the key words in a minute here. Nani, before we do that, do you want to comment on gamification around XR and any specific game examples you think are worth pointing towards? And you are muted.
Thank you. Sorry. Listen, I don't know about, until I broke my arm, which, as you guys know, I've got a broken arm, which is kind of a bit of a slowdown at the moment, but it'll get better soon. So what will be the first thing I'll get to do in XR again is pistol whip. The XR embodied games are so fun, and they're so physical, and they're such good exercise. I think that's just going to grow. So, that's, you're talking about brands, but I'm just talking about direct to the consumer. Obviously, Beat Saber helped first break the mold, and but I am just a huge pistol whip fan. It's so much fun, and you're jumping and bending and twisting, turning. I mean, that was my exercise program for COVID.
Outswitch the switch. All right. Let's get to our Jeopardy round here. Blockchain for 100. What is a blockchain?
Ash, you or me? I don't mind.
Either one of you.
You started. Let me tell you what I mean.
Go first.
All right. Listen. I'm gonna talk about blockchain as being basically it's just a puzzle being solved by a lot of computers to create a prime number, but there's only one. That's it. It's a puzzle. It is a game, really, in a funny way. But once you've got that solved item and you associate that solved item with whatever it's going to be, with it's a piece of art, whether it's a ticket, whether it's a NFT, whether it's, and I'm really interested in it as a way to create provenance, not just for any kind of deeds or anything, but also provenance in journalism to try to help with truth. That's what the blockchain allows us to do. It has such a wonderful variety of potential use cases. And I'm of course deeply concerned about the energy that's burned through that kind of computational process, but I think we're going to get that solved. And in the meantime, I think the blockchain offers, of course, I'm going to let Ashley talk a little bit more specifically about the work she's been doing in NFTs, and people immediately think about crypto, but it's a games conference, and essentially blockchain is just a game. But go ahead, Ashley.
Yeah, I love that description. I'm gonna steal that for future. That's great. Yeah, I mean, the blockchain.
You gotta register that on the blockchain.
I'm telling everyone it was Nani's words, yes. But yeah, I think of it as a public ledger, right? So like everyone can see easily who owns what. And NFTs and their popularity, I think, is exciting because it's proving people are willing to pay to own these digital assets. And that's like the certificate of ownership. I think there's a lot of hype. I think a lot of the headlines of, bought this NFT for $3 million. Well, the person who bought Bitcoin when it was $10 a Bitcoin, right? So like, I don't know if the equivalent dollar value is real. I think we are starting to see a bit of a flat line of those numbers, but at the end of the day, the proof is that people are willing to pay real money for digital goods. NFTs allow for that contract of ownership of that digital asset wherever you are.
Stop and define it first.
Oh, define NFT? It's the certificate of ownership that's registered on the blockchain. Yeah. Because, as much as I've talked about how like Fortnite and Roblox have been awesome and people spend all this time there and buy these digital assets, well, they're walled gardens and you can't leave with those digital assets. And what I get so excited with NFTs is it puts the ownership in the user's hands. So the game doesn't control it, but the user can take and move and control that digital asset, whatever virtual world they want to go in.
So if I build a digital asset in these closed walled gardens, they own it, I don't?
You can own it, but right now you can't take it out. And Fortnite and Roblox they don't let anybody just bring something in. So, Hugo Boss is a client. They've got thousands of 3D models on VNTANA's platform that would be compatible with Roblox or Fortnite, but we can't just publish and sell them. It's not an open market like Decentraland and Somnium Place and these Web3 worlds are. I'm hoping that changes. I hope everyone gets more open. But
I think Ashley hit a key point there, which is the term of interoperability, right? And I think that's going to be a very important issue going forward. I think that as we get into what is our rights for our digital selves, are we allowed to own who we are in these virtual spaces, in the virtual world? And what does it mean to have those kind of rights of ownership for property, for et cetera? And shouldn't there be, like we have an icon to make sure that there's web compatibility? There are we understand that JPEGs rights compatibility. We need to have that same kind of interoperability with our digital selves. I think it's a super interesting space, and it's going to become more and more crucial for us to address.
Talk a little bit, both of you, about NFTs as items people collect. Like, I personally would love it if the Moreau estate would build 10,000 NFTs that represent a specific Moreau masterpiece. I would love to own one of those NFTs for a lot less than the piece would cost me. So there's collectors, and I get Bored Ape, and it's collection. I've got a great collection of holy water from the Jordan River that I doubt anybody has a better collection of in Southern California. So we know that people collect. And then we have utility, right? Talk to us a little bit about utility in games and NFTs, and have I left out a big application of NFTs?
Again, because I work with lots of fashion people, what they're looking at NFTs at as well as almost like a rewards program. So you can think about it being structured similar to like points and reward systems. And instead of, if I go to your website and add my email, I would get 10% off. Well, instead I'm earning 10, fashion coin. And when I get to 100, I get a discount code, or if I get to 500, I get some free sample, which I find really interesting that it's like a lot of people are starting to create these like NFT coin reward programs. So it's another kind of use case.
And so what's nice about what Ashley's describing is that it is a use case. It does have an incentive to participate, right? So as I told you, my first piece I ever built was in Second Life. I did a Guantanamo Bay prison. I wanted to make an accessible place for people, given how off limits that was, and it ended up being a really interesting, highly trafficked space in Second Life. But Second Life went bust. It seems to be coming kind of back around again. But one of the reasons why things went, people really turned against Second Life is a lot of advertisers dropped in. But they started doing things like saying, okay, here's a Coca-Cola. You're going to buy that in Second Life, and there was a huge marketplace, right? And a currency in Second Life, and a lot of money was being exchanged for digital goods, which, by the way, would do things that would enhance the experience, give you certain, like you could. We had a cannon that we bought to let people shoot themselves over a border wall, right, in Mexico, right, and so that we built digitally, like you could just. I'm going over the border in the cannon. And so so you could do kind of fun things that let you enhance your experience. But then when Coca-Cola came in, I think the moment that things really got a little bit tough was Coca-Cola said, okay, here's an exact digital replica of our Coca-Cola bottle. Now buy it. And people didn't. And it was like, oh man, that place is no good. No, the use case was terrible. Now had they said, okay, here's some digital enhancement that lets you be a bubble inside a Coca-Cola glass and float to the top and then pop poof out of the glass or whatever, then Coca-Cola probably would have made some money. But they didn't understand the medium. And that's when things get into trouble. You have to know what you're really trying to take advantage of with these digital spaces and what they allow you to do. And I understand some of the collector's items that NFT allows for enhancing your virtual world. I get it. I mean, I personally I don't have any attraction to I get Bored Ape, it's worth money. I just can't stand the imagery, but that would never hang on my wall. Let's put it ever. I'm with you on the Miro. I'm not hanging a Bored Ape ever on my digital wall. I would be appalled. Tastelessness. Anyway, sorry.
No, well, I mean, and I think with Bored Ape, Bored Ape is such more like a status symbol, like before social media, it was literally like, did you park an expensive car in your driveway? Like, what is your house? That was like status symbol for society. Instagram status symbol became, how often do you travel? I'm taking pictures in Ibiza, blah, blah, blah. And now like Bored Ape, this is like the next level of status symbol. Like I can afford $500K to own this thing that Steph Curry and Paris Hilton are a part of, right? That's kind of how I see Bored Ape, which, they've done very well creating that.
We could have a huge conversation about provenance and item utility and how they connect. Ruth Bader Ginsburg's personal art collection was just auctioned. Mm-hmm. And I went to buy a Picasso teapot. $7,000 to $10,000 is about what you could get, a very similar teapot from Picasso on the open market. He made quite a few of them. I dropped out at 20, it went to like 30, not because of just the teapot, but because of the
Right,
provenance.
right. Ruth Bader Ginsburg's teapot. Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
we're gonna
you
take,
know,
go ahead, Nani, go ahead.
No, I know. I mean, I understand you want to be in a club with people, and people might like that, but I'm sorry. I just I can't stand the way it looks. I have a certain aesthetic threshold, and I just can't cross it. I can't cross it for board
You're
apes.
an
Sorry.
artist. It makes total sense.
Now, I might mention that the two IP you've mentioned today are Pistol Whip and Guantanamo Bay. So, all right, let's take our last 4 minutes and talk about the M word. What is the metaverse? First of all, metaverse, capital M or small m? And secondly, what is the metaverse? Is it what Matthew Ball says it is? Because
the metaverse is going to be when I'm walking around my son's college dorm room with him and telling him to pick up his bloody underwear off and dirty socks off the floor. I mean, the metaverse is going to be the scan real world that we can walk around each other's spaces in real time with, and it's going to be these digital spaces. The metaverse is going to be these smaller LinkedIn spaces and these much larger environments. There's going to be clubs, there's going to be, exclusive spaces where, it's only going to be the Bored Ape holders. Is really, I think I would call that a capital M, even though, isn't meta symbol a small m? It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Isn't their logo is a small m? Is it a big M? Oh gosh, I don't remember.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the future metaverse where we're going. I have a bit of like a broader definition. Personally, I guess everyone has their own definition, but it to me, it's just the spatial internet. We started with the internet and everything was 2D and flat, and that's what we had. Now we can actually have interactive 3D models, and even just on my desktop display, I can wander around a virtual space. It's still, on my 2D screen, but I have that spatial component. So I kind of think about it as the spatial internet. And today we can do that with our current mobile devices and desktops, headsets, and being able to do full virtual scale, like world scale places, and all that is way better. And I'm so excited to get there. And to your point, when I can put on a headset and go anywhere. But I do think we have started today, and, every single company needs to be thinking about how to start participating. It'll be like when the internet first came out and people made websites, and it was like putting a pamphlet on your webpage, and it was awful. Now you actually can do things spatially and in 3D, and you need to be thinking about redesigning, your digital footprint for that.
Yeah, I mean, even we watched Our Girl Friday, and it's a play in a movie, right? You could really see it's a fun film, but boy, it's just the locations. You might as well be watching a play. They hadn't really gotten into the idea of film enough yet, and the power of what film can do. And we've seen that now. Like, that's the Coca-Cola bottle that I just described.
Yeah.
Because, most people are growing up now used to having experiencing these spatial environments that Ashley's describing, and that's definitely the future. And the question will be how it's going to where the interoperability will be, where things are going to be wall gardens, where are we going to be able to have open spaces. But on my final note on that one, which is, if I'm going to put on my policy wonk head, is that it's really important to recognize that we need technology boards like we have ed boards or water boards or anything else. It's got to become something that is a basic governing principle for our future if we're going to be equitable and fair.
Wow. Okay. The power of the metaverse. And Ashley, I know you've spent some time advising your clients. What's an amazing metaverse? What are the 3 things you got to have in a good metaverse?
I mean, I think it needs to be easy. It's ease of use and good UX design. If nobody understands how to get in or do it, then there's no point. I think it should be fun. I mean, to Nani's point, not just the Coca-Cola bottle, but it's digital. Like it can have wings and sparkles and fly and you know, be creative. And then I again, as someone with the picks and shovels, you know, you need to be thinking about this and building for scale within your organization. You know, these one-off experiments with agencies might be fun, but that's not going to give you the real value long term. It's how do you set up your business for success with everything you do, weaving in how do you know, use 3D across the value chain and engage consumers. So
any metaverse environment up now that you like, the two of you, and we'll wrap up on this question.
I love VR chat because it's weird and fun.
Yeah, alt space is also great. You know, obviously I'm still appreciate Second Life still has some very incredibly robust space. But you know, you can make your own little metaverse. We during the COVID, we would just build one in Unity and on a Friday, and my team would meet in some floating platform and you know, throw stuff off the edges together and watch it sail down forever. I mean, like, you know, we would just kind of meet there, even though we were just represented by like a circle head and a triangle body. We felt like we were together. And I think that that's what makes the metaverse also so great, is just that you can feel like you're more connected to people than in a flat screen. That is not me saying it's going to replace real world experience. That's me saying it's going to enhance your digital experience.
Togetherness.
Togetherness.
Thank you both, really, for your time and for your leadership, both in terms of AR and VR, and for your leadership also in diversity and inclusion. Thank you a lot.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye now.
Thank you to Mike, Noni, and Ashley for a fantastic kickoff session. Our next session will start at the top of the hour, so in 9 minutes. Please join us for the Rise of Blockchain